Good day, and welcome back to the Gritty Tales Writing Vlog. I'm your host, Tyler M Mathis, and it's been a little while since I last posted. That's because I've been quite busy ghostwriting as well as writing my own novel in my spare time. Said novel will soon be self-published. Yippee! I'll provide more info on this new anti-hero crime novel in an upcoming vlog. But the self-published part is key to this video, for I am about to discuss why I am finally through submitting my meticulously polished manuscripts to literary agents and traditional publishers for their consideration. First off, this is not my usual sort of vlog where I provide writing advice. But it's not a rant either, because I'm not angry about this subject. I accept the publishing industry for what it is, so let's just call this an opinion piece, an editorial, if you will. But before we move on, a disclaimer. This vlog is about my experiences, my conclusions, and the reasoning behind them. I'm not trying to dissuade authors new or experienced to give up on trad publishing just because I'm done with it. Hell, some of you might have a better shot than you think at becoming traditionally published. We'll get to that soon enough. People start writing because they have a story to tell. However, and much as we hate to admit it, every aspiring writer dreams of achieving fantastic success through his work. Bestseller, fame, movie deals, stacking piles of money, second home in Hawaii, etc. A writer can only reach that 0.1% level by being traditionally published, which is the springboard to success for the very few who not only become published, but sell a lot of books after inking their contract. Sales will determine whether the house invests more money in an author through increased promotion. More promotion equals more sales, theoretically, which makes the house even more money and turns the author into a celebrity. The outsider's path to becoming published is to write, rewrite, edit, submit, hope for the best, and usually get rejected. Repeat until successful. But we're told to never give up on the submission process, that agents and publishers are always on the lookout for that next great blockbuster novel. Sorry, but in my opinion, they're not looking particularly hard. Agents and publishers who claim this are analogous to a fat old fisherman who drives to a lake and sets up his rods on the shore right next to the parking lot, instead of getting off his ass and walking the shoreline to actually find the fish. There are many self-published authors who sell quite well and are consummate professionals. Were I an agent, I would constantly be checking sales statistics for self-published authors and do my damnedest to sign the best. But agents and publishers refuse to do that sort of dirty legwork. Why, you may ask? Because that's not the way their dying, antiquated industry works, old boy. They, the agent-publisher complex, are the powers that be. They don't deign to seek out new talent. They expect the talent to approach them on bended knee as supplicants begging for audience, that is, a read of their novel. And as I related moments ago, we know how that usually ends. Thanks for submitting your story. Not a good fit for us right now. Better luck next time. As a clueless young author, after writing my white elephant of a first novel, which no sane publisher would ever consider, I began researching the author's path to traditional publication. That path was esoteric knowledge when I started out, but the internet had improved by the time I began my research. Turned out I'd gone about the process all wrong by writing an epic novel straight out of the gate. A writer was supposed to start with short fiction and submit stories to periodicals and e-zines. No payment for acceptance usually, though some offered a few token dollars or a free copy of the publication if it was print. The most valuable item to be earned was a publication credit that could be cited when submitting a novel down the road. These publication credits would allegedly provide the establishment with proof that the writer had chops and produced quality work. So that's what I did. And voila! Success! Several of my crime and horror shorts were published, publishing credits earned. With those credits under my belt, I wrote a novel, 11 Furlongs, available on Amazon, and the submission process began. And the novel was roundly rejected by the agent-publisher complex. But no worries, that's just part of being a writer. So I kept at it and started subbing my shorts to pro-paying publications. All rejected, but I did enjoy some success from my previous publishing credits by parlaying them into a ghostwriting career. I've earned more money ghostwriting than the average fictioneer earns in a lifetime of writing, so a modicum of success has been achieved, and I am justifiably proud of that accomplishment. So that's my current author resume. Several credits in short fiction and a successful career as a ghostwriter, with outstanding client reviews and substantial earnings listed on my Upwork profile to prove it. The latter alone screams that I am a professional who gets his work done on time every time. The exact sort of fiction writer the publishing establishment allegedly loves to work with. But I'd yet to crash the gates of the publishing establishment and shove a novel through. So I figured I would give it one last shot. Write another novel, get it professionally edited and critiqued, and then sub it hard to as many outlets as possible. A relatively limited number of outlets, alas, considering the novel is in the crime fiction genre and it's not a mystery. Yet I still subbed over 30 agents and small press publishers, and I pulled out all the stops to make my presentation as irresistible as possible. Query letters supposedly make or break a submission, so I hired a freelance pro formerly in the publishing industry to assist me in writing my query and synopsis. I's dotted and T's crossed. Nothing left to chance or my poor intuition. I put together the absolute best submission package possible. And while this was going on, I was also submitting 2 short stories to any professionally paying outlets that might be interested in them. Again, a limited number of publications, because most crime fiction publishers pay nothing, and I don't work for credits any longer. But I tried to place them where I could. I had both stories professionally edited, something I never did when submitting shorts during my nascent years of writing. I've always strived to write unique stories with new spins on the age-old plots that most stories are based on. But my submission game was always lacking, in my earlier years, despite being accepted several times. Yet I dared hope, considering all the time I had taken and all the money spent to get it right this time, that my efforts would finally bear a little fruit. A short story in a prestigious crime and suspense magazine, maybe an agent interested in representing me, contract with a small press that would publish my novel. Anything at all to make all that time and effort finally seem worthwhile. So, Tyler, how did all that work out for you? Well, of those 30-odd outlets I submitted to, over half never bothered getting back to me. Not really a surprise, since most agents and publishers list a disclaimer on their submission guidelines that they don't respond unless interested. And the actual responses were typical. Your story sounds interesting, but gee whiz, we already have all the talent we can use, but do consider us in the future. Those of you who have been in the business a while know the platitudes of rejection. As for my shorts, same deal, no takers. Now, any veteran writer watching this is probably thinking I'm a talentless hack who is just whining because he didn't get published again. To that guy or gal, I say your presumption is mistaken, because I've been in this business for 25 years and I knew what I was facing when I submitted those stories. Writing is a tough game and you have to love it, because chances are you'll never punch that golden ticket to fame and fortune and all that comes with it. This is no pity party, I assure you, and I'm not craving sympathy from anyone. So far, I've related my last experiences of submitting fiction to the publishing establishment. Now let's get into the reasons why I'll never do it again. Why, in my case, it's a waste of time trying. Aside from famous individuals who can sell books on their names and followings alone, who are the unpublished fiction writers most likely to be accepted by the publishing establishment? There are several answers, which is the reason I'm not advising any viewers to give up on traditional publishing. You just might fall into one of these categories. Category 1. A technical expert in a field pertinent to the story. A detective who writes a mystery, a history professor who writes historical fiction, an astrophysicist who writes tech-heavy sci-fi novels. Those are just a few examples. You get the idea. 2. An academic, preferably one with a background in English literature from a prestigious university. Did you go to an Ivy League school? Chances are you have a pretty good shot at being published no matter what you majored in. Having attended university writing workshops and various other literary powwows are additional feathers in the cap. This is key because they build connections, which brings us to 3. Connected individuals. In other words, the products of nepotism. These writers are like first-class passengers boarding a flight, first in line every time. Not because they're necessarily the finest writers, but because of nepotism. They know the editor, or one of the editor's friends, or another writer in the publisher's or agent's stable of talent. If someone will vouch for you, chances are you're in. The thing is, I don't actually have a problem with nepotism. It really does make the world go round, when it's practiced correctly. For example, I've recently consulted with one of my ghostwriting clients to find a good promoter for my upcoming novel release. Nepotism and referrals are trustworthy methods of finding talented and capable individuals in specific fields. But as I just mentioned, nepotism only works when practiced correctly. The person enjoying the benefits of nepotism must competently provide a service or product. Otherwise, nepotism equates to the sort of no-show jobs created by a corrupt state government. New Jersey comes to mind. In the publishing world, nepotism carelessly practiced results in stale, hackneyed, poorly written fiction. I'll give you an example. You may recall a movie from many years ago titled Heart's War. Bruce Willis was the lead in that. The novel that inspired the movie was written by John Katzenbach. Now, I never read Heart's War, but I did attempt to read one of Katzenbach's other novels. I believe the title was Just Cause, which was written several years before Heart's War. The writing was god-awfully terrible, and the editor should have been arrested for taking money under false pretenses. It was a total joke, just pure garbage. People who write for free produce better prose than that. But, well, when your father is the former Attorney General of the United States, the quality of your writing doesn't really matter all that much. He got published, period, just because he decided he wanted to be an author. Anyway, that's enough about nepotism, which brings us to the 4th type of individual likely to be published: marginalized people. I won't go into detail. YouTube might ban this video if I did, and you know who I'm talking about. 5. Anyone pushing a left-wing agenda in their fiction. Again, I don't see the need to elaborate. All I'll say is politics, unless the story is related to politics, should be omitted from fiction. That's just smart business, in my humble opinion. Whether a writer leans left or right, espousing political beliefs on the printed page will automatically turn off half of potential readers, especially if the work becomes more of a political screed than a story. So if you fall into one of the above categories, keep subbing to the publishing establishment. Talented or not, chances are you'll hit pay dirt sooner or later. As for myself, who matches none of the criteria I just went over, I'm not going to bother any longer. Not fitting the stock publishing house mold of a fiction author isn't the only reason I'm done submitting to the establishment. To explain further, I'm going to ask another question. How does being trad published behoove me in the slightest these days? Let's say, just for the hell of it, that an agent picked me up and got one of my quirky, non-conventional novels published by a major house. I'd have a slim chance of achieving major success. However, that long shot would come at a cost, namely altering the story or removing certain passages deemed to be offensive to the reading public. This happens all the time. Writers, unless they're big names, lose control of their work when they sign it over. Most have no say in choosing the cover art, and the story can be altered as the editor sees fit. This process sacrifices the author's artistic integrity to a great degree, which I find rather insulting. Another pitfall of working with a publisher is you're out if your book doesn't sell particularly well. They'll drop you after your first failed effort, and your agent will likely drop you as well. And a writer can't do much about it since he has no control over the whims and tastes of the reading public. They like what they like, which these days equates to the same old trite whodunit mysteries, international espionage thrillers, zombie fiction, etc. So if you write tripe such as that, keep subbing. A writer who strays from the ballpark of accepted genres and storylines, however, just isn't going to do that well, published or self-published. I got into writing because I became a voracious reader in my youth, and I always enjoyed reading stories with twists I'd never seen before. I pride myself on writing those same types of stories today. But there's not a lot of room for that in traditional publishing, and honestly, there never was. I have novels in my collection written by authors back in the 90s who defied convention and succeeded for a couple of books, then fell off the face of the earth because they didn't sell. And writing what I write, because I'm not making the transition to detective fiction or police procedurals or international espionage thrillers, chances are I wouldn't sell very well either. I write what I write, read it or don't read it. I have not and will not forget why I got into this business in the first place. And as for getting published by a small press, this is the one portion of this vlog where I suggest the writer not even bother. Reason? They will insist you promote yourself with little or no help from the house. Most even say it in their submission guidelines. You're supposed to build a fan base and have a huge social media presence with thousands of followers before they will consider you. Now ask yourself this. If you have that many followers and can convince even half of them to buy your book, why not just self-publish and take all the profits for yourself? Small presses are a dead end for just that reason. I won't bother with them ever again, and you shouldn't either. They're utterly pointless and every one of them deserves to fail. And lastly, I'm also done subbing short fiction. This has nothing to do with the high rejection percentage involved and everything to do with money. I'm sorry, but the 5 to 8 cents a word that publications are offering is not what I consider professional payment in the 21st century. Once I've produced another 80,000 words of short stories, I'll just compile them into another Gritty Tales anthology. So take your nickel a word and shove it, Dell Magazines, publisher of Alfred Hitchcock's Mystery Magazine. Your low rates are offensive, and I don't work for peanuts any longer. Unless those peanuts come from self-publishing. And anyway, you'd rather publish another boring-as-hell gumshoe story by one of the authors in your stable. Why should I try to compete with them? You automatically publish their stories, while the peasantry has to submit by the book and then wait, get this, at least a year before getting a response, if they even bother to respond. That's a hard no for me. I'm through begging and will never bother you again. And that's that. All of my reasons for never again submitting another story to the agent-publisher complex. Sound reasoning or sour grapes? I'd love to read your opinions on my take, and also your experiences with the publishing establishment in the comments below. And while you're at it, don't forget to like and subscribe, and click the links below to my self-published fiction on Amazon. Thank you for watching. That is all.